that in 2008 we grew by 7.3 or thereabout, but it was achieved on the back of huge deficit, which is creating problems for the current administration. But last year we managed to grow as 4.7, and this year we estimate we grow at 6.5. So we are making some progress.
All right. Now we've got a new government under the stewardship of Professor Atta Mills, and he promised to pursue a pro-poor agenda, but he'd also promised to exercise some kind of fiscal prudence. With a deficit that is at about 9.4%, we're not seeing a lot of that fiscal prudence.
Yes, because we inherited a deficit. At the time you took over, you were told the deficit was 14.5%. But we realized it was more than that. It was about 24%. So having reduced it to about 10 point something is quite an achievement. This has put some pressure on us not to be able to do or to implement the pro-poor agenda that we have. But still, we have been able to do something. For example, we promised to give free school uniforms to people in deprived communities, and we have been able to do that. We promised to give every Ghanaian child in school free exercise books. We've been able to do that. Now we are working towards providing almost free medical care. You pay once you are 18 years, you pay a premium, and that will be the end. You won't pay anymore.
All right. Now, very soon, Ghana's oil will be going on stream. Lots of investments and interests and prospecting into the Jubilee oil fields. But experts are saying Ghana must manage its expectations, that even though you are going to take on the mantle of an oil-producing nation in Africa, people mustn't get too excited about this.
No, I am not very excited. I personally am not very excited, although the oil is in my backyard. Because we've seen nearby African countries produce 2 million barrels a day, and still they wallow in poverty. you want to use the oil to diversify our economy. You shall continue to do the same thing you have been doing. Grow more cocoa, grow more food, mine more gold, but use the oil money to diversify the economy, to go into petrochemical industries so that more people get jobs to do. But oil is not going, it's just going to help us maybe maximize our revenue, but it's not going to replace anything.
Okay, let's bring Viv into the conversation. Ghana will become an oil and gas producer by as early as next year, but the challenge is whether to utilize the revenues for broader expansion of the economy or servicing debt, which currently stands at about 62%.
Yes, most certainly. I mean, I don't see a diplomatic way of phrasing how some of the other countries have handled that oil revenues, and yeah, there have been some really bad stories out of West Africa, especially in terms of the oil revenues coming in and not being used for the population. But in terms of your debt and your future growth prospects, you had mentioned earlier that you are looking at valuing your current GDP levels, and it may actually be doubled. So you're looking at a $70 billion economy, which is also a major economy in the world. And what contribution, what percentage of this you think is going to be contributed to from the oil revenues coming in? What kind of flows are you actually going to be seeing from oil? I mean, how many million barrels a day are you going to be doing, etc.?
No, you're not going to do 1 million barrels a day. In fact, we are starting with about 120 initially, reaching 250 to 500 barrels a day. Our policy towards oil is quite different from our neighbors. We are not going to flare the gas, and really we want to make more money from gas than from oil. Currently, we have plans ready to construct a gas processing plant. Out of the gas processing plant, you will be able to construct plastic factories, fertilizer producing factories in this vicinity where the gas is. So we are going to create another growth pole in Ghana, that area, that western, southwestern part of Ghana, and that will maximize the revenue you are going to get from oil. And then already you have some contract of some sort from an Indian company that wants to buy the liquefied gas. So the oil, therefore, is going to contribute the money. But you are setting up, Parliament is going to pass the law, an oil revenue management funds,
Right.
where the oil money will be put in.
Obviously, Ghana's become the flavor of the month in many respects, with many international investors wanting to come into the sector. The Chinese have been clamoring for your attention, the Indians, and we know that the American president made it very clear that he's coming to Ghana for his first visit to Africa. He said it was democracy, but people said no, it's energy security issues. The question that I want to raise in this regard is, as a lot of international attention falls on Ghana, what's being done consciously by the Ghanaian government to ensure that the oil and gas sector has local investments?
Yes, we are talking of serious local content. You know, the goods and services that can be provided by local contractors should be provided by local contractors. The high-end, where we need high technology, can be provided by foreigners. In fact, the vice president recently came from South Korea, and the South Koreans are very much interested to put in big money. But welders, mechanics, operators of certain equipment and so on, you have quite a lot, number of Ghanaians who can do this kind of thing, and you want them to do that so that you can also get some of the money. Yeah. While the more sophisticated ones are done by.
All right, now Viv was referring to the value of the Ghanaian economy. Currently, it's valued at about $35 billion, and you're saying statisticians are trying to review that figure. The issue, though, is Ghana, once the star performer of the IMF and World Bank reforms, has now been overtaken in terms of economic size and value by countries like Sudan, by countries like Kenya, and even Angola. What are you going to do to regain your political and economic stature as a mining and agrarian economy?
Well, the case of Sudan and Angola is that of oil. Otherwise, they will be where they are. So we also believe that with oil and the other resources that we have, don't forget that we are the second largest producer of gold, and the second largest producer of cocoa in Africa, in the world. Gold in Africa and cocoa in the world. So if you invest more in those areas, I think we can enhance the economy and maintain our position.
I mean, the vulnerability of Ghana is also to fluctuations in the commodity price. Post-2008, we saw a dip in the gold price, a serious dip in the cocoa price, and problems with production coming from the West African belt. And even now, as they move into the oil sector, that's also quite a volatile commodity. The Ghanaians have made efforts to move into tertiary sectors such as banking and real estate. What could they do to engender more growth in that area, Viv?
Yes. I think it's a case of, you look at other parts of the world, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. If you look at countries that have made like their populations better off because of the resources they've had, and you look at countries that have actually kind of squandered the resources they've had, you just got to look at the better examples out there. I mean, to a certain extent, look at the Arab countries. I mean, they have huge oil reserves, but they've gone out and created these massive sovereign wealth funds that are able to actually buffer them during times of downturn, where you have this $800 billion fund in Abu Dhabi, for instance, which is able to actually cushion that economy if it does take a downturn. Obviously, in case of Ghana, because they have to pay off the debt first before they can build up savings, that's not going to be the case at the moment. But if you're looking at investment coming through, and especially, for instance, you have gas. I mean, you have gas, you have energy, you have advantages that other countries just don't have in terms of energy, especially going into a carbon tax environment that you might be seeing going to the future. That gas is obviously going to be an important feature of your resources.
Yes, they are, gas and oil, especially gas. But we have decided, with the support of the Norwegians, how to not to touch the oil money. How do I explain? Not to squander the oil money. You have learned a lot from our neighbors. You know, with all the oil, it is Ghana that they come to.
All right, just a final question to you, High Commissioner. I'm just asking Viv what you're doing to really fast-track growth in telecoms, in the financial services sector, where there's been significant growth in the last 5 years. A $750 million Euro bond that's being launched for a variety of infrastructure projects. For any investor watching right now, what do you want to say to them? I
will tell them that they should have confidence in Ghana. Our neighbors, the Nigerians, say Ghana is cool. When they say Ghana is cool, it means this is a country where things move smoothly. We are very stable, very low crime country. You are free to do whatever you like, provided you don't break the basic laws, and your investment is safe. You have passed a lot of legislation and they are part of international signatory to international conventions that protect people's investment. So investors, come in, you have good time and get good return for your money.